In the beginning, before time had a name, and before the stars learned how to shine, there was only God. No mountains stood tall, no oceans roared, and no birds sang across the sky. The earth was formless and empty, wrapped in deep darkness. Yet even in that silence, God was not absent. He was present, full of wisdom, intention, and purpose. Creation did not begin as an accident. It began as a decision of love. When God chose to create the world, He did not act randomly or carelessly. Every moment of creation was thoughtful, intentional, and filled with divine order. This first truth teaches us something powerful. If God created the universe with purpose, then our lives too are not without meaning. We are not here by mistake. We exist because the Creator willed it so. When God said, "Let there be light," light burst into existence, breaking through the darkness. This was the first act of divine order. God did not remove the darkness immediately. Instead, He separated light from darkness and gave each its place. Day and night were formed, establishing rhythm and balance. This shows us that God values structure and harmony. In our own lives, seasons of light and darkness also exist. Moments of joy and moments of struggle both have their place in the story God is writing. Just as night prepares the earth for rest and day awakens it to life, every season in our lives serves a purpose. Even when we walk through darkness, it is not meaningless. God is still shaping, still organizing, and still preparing something beautiful. On the second day, God created the sky, stretching it out like a vast canvas between the waters above and the waters below. This was not just an act of separation, but an act of design. The sky became a symbol of space, possibility, and protection. It reminds us that God is not only concerned with the visible, but also with the unseen spaces of our lives. Our thoughts, dreams, fears, and hopes all exist under the sky of His care. Just as He placed the heavens with precision, He places boundaries and protection around our lives. Sometimes we do not understand why certain doors close or why certain paths change. Yet just as the sky holds the balance of creation, God holds the balance of our journey. On the third day, God gathered the waters and caused dry land to appear. He called the land earth and the waters seas. Then He spoke life into the soil, and plants, trees, and vegetation began to grow. Seeds were placed within each plant, ensuring that life would continue. This moment reveals the sustaining nature of God's purpose. He did not only create beauty, He created growth and continuity. In the same way, God plants seeds within us, gifts, talents, passions, and dreams. Some seeds remain hidden for years before they bloom. Just because a seed is buried does not mean it is forgotten. God's timing allows roots to grow before the fruit appears. Your purpose may be developing quietly beneath the surface, preparing for the right season to emerge. On the fourth day, God created the sun, moon, and stars to govern the day and night, and to mark seasons, days, and years. The lights in the sky were not random decorations. They were instruments of order and guidance. The sun would warm the earth, the moon would illuminate the night, and the stars would serve as markers of direction. This teaches us that God provides guidance for life's journey. Just as sailors once used the stars to navigate the oceans, we are given spiritual direction through God's wisdom. Even when life feels uncertain, God has already placed signs of guidance in our path. Purpose is not something we create alone. It is something we discover through alignment with the Creator. On the fifth day, God filled the waters with living creatures and the skies with birds that soared across the heavens. Life began to move, swim, and fly. Creation was no longer still. It was alive with motion and diversity. Each creature had its own design, role, and environment. Fish belonged to the sea, birds to the sky, and each species carried a unique purpose within the ecosystem. This diversity reveals that God does not create copies, He creates individuals. Your uniqueness is not a flaw, but a divine design. Just as no two birds fly exactly the same way, no two lives are meant to follow identical paths. God's purpose for you is distinct, personal, and intentional. On the sixth day, God created the animals that walked upon the land. From the smallest creature to the largest beast, every form of life reflected God's creativity. Yet creation reached its most profound moment when God said, "Let us make mankind in our image." Humanity was not formed casually but intentionally, crafted in the likeness of the Creator. This means that within every human life exists dignity, value, and purpose. Being made in God's image is not just about appearance, it is about identity. It means we are designed to reflect love, wisdom, creativity, and stewardship. Your life carries divine imprint. You are not ordinary in God's eyes. You are created with meaning beyond measure. When God formed humanity, He gave them responsibility over the earth. This was not a burden, but a calling. Stewardship itself is a sign of purpose. God trusted humanity to care for His creation, showing that purpose often involves responsibility. In our own lives, the roles we carry, family, work, service, and influence, are not accidents. They are opportunities to fulfill divine intention. Even small acts of kindness, creativity, and leadership reflect God's original design for humanity. Purpose is not always found in grand achievements. Sometimes it is found in faithful obedience in daily life. After completing creation, God looked at everything He had made and declared it very good. This moment reveals that God's purpose leads to goodness. He does not create chaos, He creates order. He does not create meaninglessness, He creates intention. When God calls creation good, He affirms its value. In the same way, your life is not a mistake. Even if you have faced failure, rejection, or confusion, God's original declaration over humanity still stands. You are part of His good creation. Purpose does not disappear because of mistakes. Instead, God's grace restores and redirects. The seventh day, when God rested, was not because He was tired, but because His work was complete and perfect. Rest became a sacred rhythm woven into creation itself. This shows that purpose is not only about doing, but also about being. Rest allows reflection, renewal, and realignment with God's will. In a world that constantly demands productivity, the divine example of rest reminds us that our value is not based solely on our actions. We are valuable simply because we are created by God. True purpose includes peace, not just effort. Creation teaches us that order precedes fulfillment. God did not create humans before preparing the earth for their survival. Light, water, land, vegetation, and animals all came first. This sequence shows that God prepares environments before revealing purpose. If you feel like your life is in preparation rather than fulfillment, do not lose hope. God may be arranging circumstances, relationships, and opportunities before unveiling the next chapter of your journey. Preparation is part of purpose, not a delay of it. The beauty of creation also reflects God's love for detail. From the colors of flowers to the patterns of the stars, nothing was designed without intention. This means that even the smallest aspects of your life matter to God. Your thoughts, your struggles, your dreams, and your quiet prayers are all seen. Purpose is not limited to public achievements. It exists in private faithfulness and inner growth. God's attention to detail in creation assures us that He is equally attentive to the details of our lives. Another lesson from creation is that God speaks things into existence. His word carries power. When He said, "Let there be," something new emerged. This teaches us that God's voice has authority over chaos. In moments when life feels empty or directionless, God's word can bring clarity and transformation. Just as light overcame darkness at the beginning, divine truth can overcome confusion in our hearts. Purpose often begins when we listen to God's voice, rather than the noise of the world. Creation also reveals that God values process. He could have created everything in an instant, yet he chose a sequence of days. This shows that purpose unfolds step by step. Growth is gradual. Transformation is progressive. If your life feels incomplete, remember that God works in stages. Each phase contributes to the larger design. Trusting the process is part of trusting the Creator. The harmony of creation reflects balance. Day and night, land and sea, work and rest, all exist in divine equilibrium. When life feels out of balance, it may be a sign to realign with God's original rhythm. Purpose is not found in extremes, but in harmony with God's design. Living with faith, discipline, love, and rest brings alignment with the order established in creation. God's creation also demonstrates generosity. He did not create a barren world, but a flourishing one filled with resources and beauty. This reveals that God's purpose for humanity includes abundance, not merely material wealth, but spiritual richness, joy, peace, and meaning. When we align with His purpose, life gains depth and fulfillment beyond external success. The act of naming creation shows God's authority and intentionality. He named the light day and the darkness night, the land earth, and the waters seas. Naming signifies identity and purpose. Likewise, God knows your name and your calling. You are not lost in the crowd of humanity. Your identity is personal to Him. Purpose begins with knowing who you are in the Creator's eyes. Creation also teaches responsibility. Humanity was instructed to care for the earth, not exploit it. This principle extends to how we treat others, our talents, and our opportunities. Purpose involves stewardship. What God gives us is meant to be nurtured, not neglected. Our time, abilities, and relationships are gifts entrusted to us for meaningful use. The diversity in creation reflects inclusivity within God's design. Different species, landscapes, and ecosystems coexist in harmony. This reminds us that purpose is not limited to one type of life path. Some are called to lead, others to serve, others to create, and others to heal. Every role contributes to the larger harmony of God's plan. Creation's beauty also points to worship. The stars declare His glory, the oceans reflect His power, and the forests display His creativity. When we recognize the intentional design of the universe, we are drawn toward gratitude. A life lived in gratitude is a life aligned with purpose. Gratitude shifts our focus from what is missing to what is divinely given. Even the beginning of creation, where the earth was formless and empty, carries a message of hope. God did not abandon the emptiness. He transformed it. This means that emptiness in our lives is not the end of the story. God specializes in bringing order out of chaos and life out of void. Your past struggles do not define your future purpose. Creation also shows that God delights in life. Each stage of creation was followed by His approval. This reveals a joyful Creator who celebrates growth and progress. Likewise, God rejoices in our growth, even when it is gradual. Purpose is not about perfection, but about progress in alignment with God's will. The relationship between God and creation is one of care and authority. He sustains what He creates. The same God who formed the universe continues to sustain your life today. Your breath, your strength, and your opportunities are evidence of ongoing divine care. Purpose is sustained by God's presence, not human effort alone. Creation also reveals the power of beginnings. The first chapter of existence set the foundation for everything that followed. In the same way, every new beginning in your life holds potential for purpose. Whether it is a new season, a new goal, or a new step of faith, God can use fresh starts to fulfill His plan. The light created on the first day symbolizes hope. Darkness was present, yet it did not have the final word. Light prevailed. This reminds us that hope is foundational to purpose. Even in uncertainty, divine light continues to guide and illuminate our path. God's intentional design of humanity as male and female also reflects relational purpose. Humans were not meant to exist in isolation, but in connection. Relationships, community, and love are integral to fulfilling God's purpose. We grow stronger and more aligned with divine intention when we support and uplift one another. Creation also teaches that God's purpose includes creativity. Humanity, made in His image, possesses the ability to create, innovate, and imagine. Every invention, artwork, and act of creativity reflects a small echo of the Creator's nature. When you create something meaningful, you participate in the divine pattern established at the beginning of time. Another profound truth is that God's purpose existed before humanity ever questioned their existence. Purpose is not something we invent, it is something we uncover. God already had a plan for humanity before forming them. Likewise, your life's purpose existed in God's heart before you were born. The order of creation shows that God builds foundations before fulfillment. Light came before life, structure before growth, and preparation before responsibility. This reminds us to value foundational seasons in our lives, learning, growing, and developing character, because they prepare us for greater purpose ahead. Creation also reminds us that God is sovereign over time. He established days, seasons, and cycles. Nothing in life is random under His authority. Delays, transitions, and waiting periods all exist within His timing. Trusting His timing is essential to understanding His purpose. The story of creation ultimately reveals a God who creates with love, order, and intention. Every detail of the universe reflects a purposeful design. If God designed the vast galaxies and the smallest seed with intention, then your life too is woven into His grand design. You are not here by chance. You are here by divine purpose. Even when life feels uncertain, remember the first chapter of creation. God brings light into darkness, order into chaos, and meaning into emptiness. Just as the world was created with beauty and purpose, your life is part of that same intentional masterpiece, crafted by the hands of the Creator, who declares over His creation, "It is very good."